They've got the building.
They have already killed one hostage.
They've got the odds. They've got his wife.
No!
Now, he's got one night to get it all back.
You really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Yippee-kay-ay. Bruce Willis in 40 Stories of Sheer Adventure. Die Hard. Rated R. Now playing in selected cities. Starts Wednesday, July 20th at theaters everywhere.
Yippee-kay-ay, motherfuckers, and welcome to Cinemarcade. This is the
straight for the F.
Oh, you know, why not? Why not?
In my head, I was like, I on the way out. That's how I'm gonna end it. And then you started it that way.
Why not start off with an explosive bang, all right? Because this is Cinemarcade. We're the podcast about movies, video games, and the sparks that fly, or the F-bombs that fly, when those worlds collide. My name is Steve Guntley, and we are doing a month-long holiday extravaganza, a winter wonderland, if you will, where we're talking only about Christmassy movies and the games based on them. And of course, we've arrived at the most Christmassy movie of all, the one about a little boy who believed that he could and accomplished a lot. That's right, we're talking about Die Hard today. And who is joining me in the air vents today to talk about this little classic?
The Roy Rogers Cowboy J-Ban.
And who else is here?
I'm a New York cop. That was not the right accent, but I'm a New York cop. None of this is going the right direction.
You are going straight.
I'm Justin.
You are Cajun right now.
Yeah,
I'm a New York cop, I do declare. I got to solve all these crimes here on the bayou of Long Island.
None of my family's from Louisiana, but goddamn, that was getting real down there.
Apparently that's where you go, yeah. John McClane has just a bunch of extra, like, zeros and O's. What do you do?
I've got a stain on my shirt. I put this shirt on an hour ago.
It's the curse of Die Hard. Did you see the evolution of that shirt?
Oh my God, that poor shirt.
That shirt broke down over the course of his little Christmas adventure. That's right. Yeah, I'm going to make a hard stance and say, yes, this is a Christmas movie, mostly because, as I hinted last week, I find that whole argument incredibly tedious. A Christmas movie is a Christmas movie if it's part of your Christmas tradition. If this is part of your tradition, go nuts. This does absolutely take place at Christmas. That was built into the script. It's built into the story. And if you listen to the score of this movie, they work a lot of Christmas carols into kind of the action-y motif. So, let's just put it to bed. Call it a Christmas movie. Go nuts. Go nuts. Have fun with it.
I concur.
Thank you, Professor. I appreciate that. I think the one thing everybody can agree on, though, is that this is an absolutely seminal action movie, one of the defining movies of the 1980s, and I still think one of the best action thrillers ever
Classic, perhaps perfect,
pretty
structured movie.
Close.
As somebody who wasn't alive during this time period, was this the movie that popularized the crawling through the vents trope?
Maybe a little bit.
Was this a thing before that?
I was trying to think about it. Yeah, it might be. I mean, I guess we can point to Alien. Alien and Aliens came up before this,
I guess
but
so.
This one definitely perfected the crawling through events trope. I would say. Let's talk a little bit about this movie. It's called Die Hard. It was released July 15th, 1988. It was directed by John McTiernan and written by Stephen E. D'Souza and
It was
Jed
a summer
Stewart.
movie?
It was a summer movie. Oh. Yeah. This stars Bruce Willis, Alan Rickman, Bonnie Bedelia, Reginald Vell Johnson, William Atherton, Alexander Godunov, Hart Bachner, Devereaux White, Clarence Gilliard Jr., Robert Davi, Grandel Bush, and Paul Gleason. So right off the bat, a lot of characters in this movie.
Yeah, a lot of
that's kind of the
characters.
one thing that people, if you want to find a flaw with Die Hard, people tend to throw out too many supporting characters. Some of them are kind of wacky.
No. The supporting characters make the movie.
I'm with
they're
you.
so
Absolutely.
good.
This movie, I love all of the characters. I love so many incredible quotes. So much good stuff comes from all over. It's so great.
Do either of you have any idea who was originally approached to star in this movie? The first choice, the person they were coming for.
Robert Redford?
No, that's a good safe bet. But
I feel like at one point I knew this, and I feel like it's there, but it's just out of my reach.
this was designed to be a vehicle for 72-year-old Frank Sinatra. Okay,
no.
because
No,
Yes.
I
Not the
don't
direction
know.
thought.
Yes, it
Okay, I
was.
definitely not right.
because this is actually based on a novel. It's based on a novel called Nothing Lasts Forever by Roderick Thorpe. And Roderick Thorpe wrote a series of these kind of hard-boiled detective novels back in the 50s and 60s, one of which was called The Detective. That was adapted into a 1966 film starring Frank Sinatra. The character in the books, his name is Joe Leland, and he's meant to be a little older, a little more cynical, a little more nihilistic, and misogynist, frankly. But yeah, so Frank Sinatra played that role in 1966, and when originally they were pitching the script, they were thinking of this maybe as kind of like a legacy sequel, you know, like let's bring him back after 20 years and see what he's been up to. He's, you know, something of a victory lap for a very aging Sinatra as well. But he thankfully was not interested in it. So, you know, they went to a lot of other different people. They had this pitch initially as Rambo in an office building. That was kind of the thing that they sold this script off of. And so, of course, they're going to talk to Sylvester Stallone. They talked to Schwarzenegger. They talked to Eastwood, Harrison Ford, Burt Reynolds, Mel Gibson. All of these guys were approached. But I think one of the things that makes this movie brilliant and enduring is their casting choices and the way that they went so against the grain with what everybody was doing. Bruce Willis, at this time, was primarily known as a comedic actor. Okay, he was a sitcom star. He was on Moonlighting with Sybil Shepherd, which is now also all on Hulu. So if you've never seen, have you seen Moonlighting?
I watched. I was trying to watch the first episode of Moonlighting, which is like an hour and a half long.
Yeah,
and it's really misogynistic.
It can be. It's a little bit of a battle of the sexes thing, which is not
it is a
aged
battle
well.
of the sexes thing, but the chemistry is undeniable.
Absolutely. That's one of those, if you want to point as like an example of what good on-screen chemistry looks like, you get those two in that show. So Bruce Willis had really only done one significant movie before this. It was a minor hit romantic comedy called Mystery Date, or Blind Date. Mystery Date was another movie from around the same time. But, you know, either way, this casting was not super obvious. Right now, in the 80s, the trend with action movies is bigger, bigger, bigger. You need to have the biggest muscles. You need to have the biggest guns. You need to be the most unkillable pun delivery system known to man. And Bruce Willis was not that. He's got a very average kind of style, you know. He's like a handsome man, but like kind of a balding middle-aged guy with a little bit of a paunch, you know. And he's kind of a different style than what they were going for. And the characterization here is also very vulnerable, very fallible. Like, he is not this invincible Superman. He gets the shit beat out of him by the end of this movie.
Yes.
Like, he's able to pull all this stuff off because he is tough and he has a strong force of will. But he cries in this movie. Like, he has marital problems. Like, this is not like an Arnold Schwarzenegger caricature of an action hero.
He lets people live who he later kills.
Absolutely.
I think one solid moment that really kind of sets the tone for what you're going to get out of him is when he first meets up with Holly at her workplace in the office, and he kind of like starts a bit of an argument that ends up getting cut short and she has to go.
Yeah.
And then he just goes over to the bathroom and it's like, "You idiot. Like, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
And, like, he knows he's messing
Yeah.
up as soon
Because
as
she
he's
was
done it.
offering an olive branch, a piece, saying "I missed you," and then he just couldn't let the Gennaro thing go.
Yeah. He knows who he is, and he's not trying to be the action star. He just happens to be in an action movie.
And it's an interesting dynamic too, because all this macho cop shit that makes him so good at his job makes him a terrible husband.
Yeah.
And this movie like addresses that and just like, okay, what would it be like to be married to a guy like this? And it would be terrible, you know. And then the same goes with the casting of the villain here. All right, so they talk to all the major guys. They talk to Christopher Walken. They talk to all the different guys who usually play heavies in movies around this time, and none of them were quite right. And instead, they went with a 40-year-old British stage actor who had never done a movie. This is Alan Rickman's very first movie. In fact, he only started acting when he was like 32 3, something like that. He was a graphic designer for most of his life and then discovered he had this passion for it. Became this big hit on the West End in London, started doing some stuff on Broadway over here. And then he gets this call out of nowhere after the producer sees him perform in Dangerous Liaisons. And it's just like, yeah, this is my guy. And this is one of the most iconic film villains of all time. Alan Rickman as Hans Gruber.
So good.
I mean, the gentleman thief thing is always like such a cool villain trope for me, like where he's very smart and urbane, but like willing to absolutely kill innocent people.
But in this one, he's a brutal gentleman thief, and
absolutely.
like his brutality is unmatched, and like like in the realm of gentleman thieves. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
He's like also and just entering that kind of Silver Fox era too. Of
Yeah.
Like, all right. Okay.
He's got a little gravitas,
a little bit of graying in the hair, again, a great choice. I loved him so much in this.
There was apparently a scene in this movie where the director wanted him to throw Bonnie Bedelia's character down on the ground, and he refused to do it because he's just like, this is not something my character would do. Like he is a thief, he can be a monster, but he also respects her and her respects her intelligence and wouldn't lower himself to like abuse a woman like that, you know. So that's an interesting choice, you know. And I mean, they do this all over the place, you know. Like the character of Al, the sergeant down on the ground, is played by Reginald Vell Johnson. They talked to a lot of bigger stars to do this part, but instead they went with just the right guy. He wasn't well known at the time. Family Matters was still a few years off. So he wasn't that well known. He was just the right guy. He had the right vibe. He's so pleasant and like, but still forceful and kind of commanding and
snarky.
Snarky.
Ooh.
Yes.
It helps that his captain is the dumbest son of a bitch. Like that. He's the one character that like I would argue maybe is a little flawed in this movie. The captain character is too dumb. I mean, he doesn't like say duh and fall
does
over,
work
but
for the LAPD though.
he does. They're saying something. I think
And he
here.
does. It almost seems like he's playing the politician angle more than the cop angle.
Oh yeah, completely.
He's caring more about the way this looks than the way this goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, like so many of the characters have like imperfections. Like Al is struggling a little bit too. Like he's on desk duty because he accidentally shot a kid, I believe.
He did. Yeah.
Because he thought the kid had a gun. I think that was the scenario.
That was it. Yeah. That's the situation.
And so he's still dealing with that. He hasn't even used his gun for anything. Practice, nothing. He hasn't touched it.
There has been a lot written about this movie's themes of like retribution through violence, or like cleansing yourself through violence. Because in both him and John's case, like they are able to make themselves better men, braver men, stronger men through acts of extreme violence. Like they're also acts of service in a way, but they are, you know, murdering people.
It's a very 80s macho motif on that one.
It is, but it's still not as pronounced as something like Arnold Schwarzenegger's Commando or Rambo or things like that, like where it's comically like celebrating in this gore and carnage. Like the gore and carnage is here. This is a pretty bloody, violent movie. And he's even got some quips, but I would argue his quips are a lot wittier than the puns that Schwarzenegger would usually drop too.
They feel more like the type of thing that a person in that situation would actually be like popping off.
They're more grounded.
They're more grounded. They're sourced from like anger, agitation, annoyance. Like he's fighting a bunch of thieves on his own.
Yeah.
And this is a shitty situation all in all for everybody involved. And it really shines through a lot of the quotes and his reactions to stuff.
And the fun thing about John McClane as a character as this series goes on is that he always starts at a severe disadvantage. In this movie, he's tired and jet lagged. In the next movie, he's been stuck in an airport for hours and he's cranky. In the third movie, he's hungover. Yeah. You know, like, and he's got to do all these extreme things, like while he's already kind of at less than zero. You know, so it's always an interesting way to kind of make him an underdog. And there's the culture clash thing, too. He is a New York cop in L.A., and this was a time in the 80s when everyone was really fascinated by the differences between the two coasts. You know, like, oh, L.A. culture is so different from New York culture. Like, let's make a Woody Allen movie about it. Yeah, like it was kind of that vibe.
I do want to point out that when you were talking about the Die Hard movies there, you missed 2.
Yeah, no, I
Do
don't
you
think
not
I
wanna
did.
talk
I
about
don't think I
this?
did. I think I got all 3 of them, right? I got all 3. Yeah,
All 3, yeah, the three
Live
Die Hard
Free-
movies.
Yeah.
Live Free or Die Hard was more of just like an action movie.
I saw that one exactly
It was
one
okay.
time.
Yeah,
it was fine. Most of my memories of that movie are subsumed by me taking a stand and yelling at people who wouldn't shut up during the movie, and they left, and the rest of the people in the theater like applauded, and one guy bought me popcorn, and that was kind of like the only
You were
triumph.
riding the high.
It was
from
like
that for years.
It was the only triumphant moment I ever had of confrontation, because I avoid confrontation at all costs, but
So great.
they were horrible.
and then there was Die Hard in Russia, when that one.
I never even
never
saw,
saw that.
never
I
even
did.
I hear it's pretty dire. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
No.
a shame. I mean, because this movie was so popular and so influential that it not only kind of revived the whole action movie genre, which was sort of growing a little stale because of all the big guns, big muscles kind of style. It kind of revitalized it. And in some of the better action movies we get in the 90s are just Die Hard on a blank. Think of Speed. Speed is Die Hard on a bus. Under Siege is Die Hard on a ship. Air Force One is Die Hard on Air Force One. Like there's a lot of movies like that, and those are all good movies.
Yeah.
Those are fun, watchable, like tight action movies.
I never thought about Air Force One as Die,
Die
Hard,
Hard.
and now it's clicking.
It totally is, though, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
100%.
Yeah, it's absolutely that.
So many of the movies that you think about are heavily following the general tone, and even to a degree the formula.
Yeah.
That's such an
And to
interesting revelation to me.
to backtrack a little bit to Bruce Willis, like it is important to recognize what a big moment this was for him. So he got this part, and his representation was able to negotiate a $5 million payday. Now that's like Mel Gibson numbers back then. That's like, this is A-list numbers, so everybody was kind of waiting for him to fail. It was the same thing that happened with Michael Keaton in Batman. Like people heard it and they're just like, there's no way this makes sense. This guy doesn't fit my image of what this character should be.
I'm kind of amazed that he commanded that much.
It was a coup. It was seen as a coup even back then, and it was sort of a make or break moment. If this movie hadn't connected, his career would have been over functionally, and instead it connected, and he became like a new A-list
catapulted.
star
Yeah.
for the 90s. He's had an extremely long career. It's sad to think about him now. For those who don't know, Bruce Willis has pretty severe early onset dementia. At this
And
point, he's
also-
nonverbal, and his family's just kind of taking care of him nonstop, and it's a real shame because he's a very unique movie star, I think, and he's made a lot of great movies. He's made a lot of bad movies too, but he's made a lot of great movies, and I always kind of enjoyed seeing him pop up and stuff.
So it's actually 2 things, and I don't remember the name of the other one, so I'm looking it up real quick.
Aphasia, yeah.
So it's aphasia primarily that is caused by brain damage, and that makes it difficult to express and comprehend things.
Yeah.
And so that was making it so that he couldn't act.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He would have to, it was a struggle for him to get through a shoot.
It was like before people knew what was going on, it was kind of like a point for critics to be mean to him. Like he did a performance of Misery on stage with Laurie Metcalf, and people were criticizing him because he was getting his lines through an earpiece, but it was because he couldn't.
Yeah.
It was starting to slip, and he couldn't remember his lines. And he
Yeah.
was trying, but he couldn't do it.
He had gotten a Golden Raspberry Award.
Yeah.
And once they discovered it, they revoked it.
They did. Yeah.
Yeah.
One
They
of
were
the,
like, oh, okay, look, this isn't cool.
every once in a while, like the Razzies have been kind of on an apology tour lately, where they're going out. There's some they would pick on little kids in movies and stuff like that, and just
Yeah.
stuff that seemed really mean, and they would kind of go back and
But then
apologize lately.
That was the announcement that they made last year. At the beginning of this year is when they announced that he also was struggling with dementia at the same time.
Right.
And so to have a cognitive disorder that keeps you from being able to properly talk, and then dementia, I saw a clip recently, actually, about his birthday.
Oh yeah.
And he's able to talk, but it definitely seems like he can't do sentences. And
Yeah.
so he's not. Yeah. He's able to. You can tell in his face, in the way he's saying thank you to his daughter, because it's his birthday. His daughter did something, I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
You could see the love and emotion there, but he was just fighting to find a way to say anything
It's
to make it work. And
It's really sad.
It's sad
it's
to see, yeah,
because
'cause-
so sad. And from what I've heard, he was a pretty decent dude.
yeah,
right?
yeah, for the most part. You
Yeah.
know, he definitely had his like I'm a movie star, I'm swinging my dick
Yeah.
around now kind of era, you know, like he had a music career that the less spoken of the better, yeah, but you know, he had a little moment there, and he did become this like huge crossover star for a long time. He kind of endured past a lot of his peers, or a lot of the people that, you know, they said he could never compete with. So it was pretty amazing, you know. And we lost Alan Rickman a few years ago too, which was one of those celebrity deaths that was like weirdly devastating. Obviously, it's like I didn't know him. It's just like he and Bowie died like right around the same time, and they were both guys who were like, you just don't really think of them dying. You know, they're kind of just
they're
around.
relatively like young when you look at people like who our president is. You know, like there's no reason they couldn't have lived for another 20, 25 years.
Yeah, at least. Yeah.
But so it's tragic.
It's definitely a shame.
And especially since it was his second bout of cancer.
Yeah.
He had already gotten through prostate cancer, and then like a decade later with pancreatic cancer, I think.
Yeah.
That's so out of left field and so unfortunate that you just like have to be sad that happened. Like they already went through a battle, and then to be hit with another one.
Do you guys know the story of Alexander Godunov?
No.
He's the actor in this who plays Carl, kind of the main henchman, the long blonde-haired guy. He was actually kind of a big political figure in the 70s because he's Russian-born. He is or was at the time one of the best ballet dancers in the world. He danced with the Bolshoi, and he was in like Mikhail Baryshnikov's company and everything like that. And he defected from the Soviet Union to come to America so that he could dance with the New York Ballet. And that was kind of a big thing. We were still in the Cold War at this time. It was a big deal to have like a significant artist like that make the transition and kind of move over to America. And then he started acting a little bit after his his ballet career kind of reached its conclusion. You can only do that for so long. It's very physically demanding. So, yeah, he had a handful of movie roles after this. I believe he also died pretty young. He died back in the 90s, but always interesting to see. Like I remember just watching the movie and thinking he was such a striking guy, and then finding out he was a ballet dancer and like
and
one
such
of the great
a good
ones.
character. It's a setup so early on that he killed his brother.
Yeah.
That they create this rivalry not just between Hans and John McClane, but between Carl and John McClane.
Absolutely. And he's the physically imposing one, right? Like Hans is the smart one, but he's kind of like a reedy little guy. Like John McClane could beat him in a fight.
Yes.
Carl
and
is the muscle. Like he's the one he's got to be afraid of.
And the thing too is that he kind of has, and it's something that in my head clicked when you said it, the way that he kind of carries himself physically. To me, it's just like when you said, "Oh, they did dance like ballet, they danced." It was like, "Oh, okay, that makes so much sense," because he seems to be moving very kind of elegant, kind of like he determined, like he knows.
He moves with purpose.
Yes.
Yeah, look at the way he moves across the roof, like holding the sniper rifle. Do you know the scene I'm
Yeah,
talking
I know
about?
exactly what you're
He's
talking
like,
about.
He's like gliding across the ground, like
so
concealing his
swift.
steps.
Yeah, he's just, you can tell there's a lot of like capability there that's going into controlling all of it's. Yeah,
It's cool, and that's again just kind of why this movie has endured and like its reputation's just gotten better because like every character, like yes, there are a lot of characters, but damn near every character gets a little bit of depth.
Yeah.
You know, most of the terrorists are
They
like
get a little bit of
disposable.
depth.
Henchmen, yeah, they
Yeah.
just get out of there.
And they also have a great way. You're in this office building, which could be a really boring setting, but they have the lobby, they have the party, they have the conference room, they have the elevator shaft, they have the roof. They make a meal out of this what could have been a really boring setting.
And on top of that, Nakatomi Tower, which now that I'm thinking about it, I have a Nakatomi Tower shirt.
Right, yeah, I've seen that.
I should have worn it today. But
Yeah, it's an audio medium. You're fine.
Yeah. Just for funsies.
Yeah.
We're
But,
all wearing tank tops.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Covered in blood and sweat.
And sweat and dirt and some shards of glass.
Yeah, I put a whole bunch of glass in my feet. I hope you guys are cool with that.
I noticed it and I didn't want to say anything.
I
but,
appreciate that. You have good manners.
Nakatomi Tower is also such like a fancy and elegant building.
Yeah.
Of like
It has a
modern
touch screen.
elegant. It has a touch screen.
In 1988.
Which I have to call bullshit on that scene a tiny bit, just because
Yes.
he is using the touch screen so he can look up the names. This is the purpose of this scene is for us to see that his wife has changed her name. But like the guard could have just said, "Oh yeah, they're all up on this floor because that's the only place anybody is." Like, why are you?
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh yeah, everybody who's left in the
And
building is
so
on that floor." It's like, dude,
for
save some
anybody
time.
who hasn't seen Die Hard, it's happening during like the big blowout corporate Christmas party of like a pretty rich fucking corporation.
A pretty rich corporation, so rich that they don't mind making people have parties on New Year's Eve. I mean, on Christmas
Exactly.
Eve.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Which
Apparently-
which always happens in movies, but no
Oh,
Christmas party has ever been, like, business Christmas party has ever been on New Year's.
My office Christmas
Eve.
party is like after people hearing this is 2 days ago.
No, mine's tomorrow.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
even know when mine is, but I'm pretty sure I have an invite for it somewhere.
Yeah.
But it's like the way that it's all dressed up too. There's a Christmas tree that's 2 stories tall.
It's gorgeous. Yeah.
There's so much, and that lends a lot of variety because you go from these like super fancy party places to like there's a couple of floors in the building that aren't finished yet. They're still being built out. They're not ready for a tenant to come into. There's like maintenance shafts and corridors and stuff.
You could say the building is almost a character itself.
No.
Did you know that New York is a character? No.
they make use of just about every set piece you could possibly think of in an office building.
Absolutely.
You never get bored of it. But then, like you were saying, the building starts to become part of it.
Yeah.
To the point of where it gets a little splody at some points, and you're like, oh.
Absolutely. And I mean, but
To me, I was just like, the structural damage to this building. I don't think this building's fixable.
probably not. Yeah, at this point, they blow off the whole roof of it, and then a helicopter crashes
They
into
blow
it.
off
Yeah.
the roof of it.
They blow up like the 4th floor.
Yeah.
I think it's lower than the 4th floor, but
Yeah.
no, they do a number on a lot of parts of this building.
Yeah. And I mean, even the characters that like you get that aren't maybe the most developed, they're at least distinctive. Like they pop. You know, you get one of the terrorists who's like, I always think of him as the Butterfinger guy, you know.
Yeah, the
'cause
Butterfinger.
He's queuing up in the gift shop and then decides like, oh, I'm gonna sneak a candy bar. Like you get
I think didn't he go for a Crunch Bar?
Crunch bar.
Oh, excuse me, Crunch Bar.
I noticed that specifically because it's one of my favorite candy bars.
Okay.
When he does that, I'm like, oh, fuck yeah, buddy. Me and you.
You're like, you get it. You get it.
You know.
I was like, well, I haven't had a Crunch bar in years.
So what
That's
you're saying is it worked.
That's kind of my thing
Because
with Crunch
somebody-
Bar. Yeah,
Nestle probably paid some money for that one.
I will go 5 years at a time without eating a Crunch Bar, and then I'll have one, and it'll hit the damn spot,
Yeah.
and then 5 years that'll hold me. That'll hold me for the next 5 years.
That's exactly it. Same thing. Like I don't get them very often, but when I do, I'm like, this was
They
the
get it.
one to get right now.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, even like Argyle, the limo driver, gets a lot of good moments. Like
Yeah.
the shitty like reporter gets some good moments. Like the nerdy guy who's like hacking the bank
That
gets some good
fucking
moments.
reporter.
William Atherton deserves some kind of statue for playing all the shittiest like bad guys in 80s movies. Between this and Ghostbusters and like I think there's a few more.
There's a
right?
few more,
Like,
yeah.
he's got a lot of like Evil Dean energy. I don't know if he ever played an Evil Dean, but he's got so much of that energy.
But going back to Theo.
Oh, yeah.
The nerdy hacker guy.
Yeah.
I growing up, my family watched a lot of. Was it just called Texas Rangers? The one with
Walker, Texas Rangers.
Texas Rangers. Yeah.
Oh, that is him,
And
isn't it?
he was the partner and
yeah.
Walker's best
my
friend
God.
and confidant.
I don't know how I
Oh,
never put that
wow.
together.
He drove a Corvette.
Yeah.
Like, I fucking loved that guy in Walker. And so then seeing him in this movie, I was like, yes! Hello!
I never connected that.
I
Every
never
time he
connected
shows
that
up
as
in a
well.
movie, I'm just like, hello
Yeah.
again, old friend. I pulled it up here, but his name's Clarence.
Clarence Gilliard,
Clarence
yeah.
Gilliard.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody plays their role so well, and they all have like little like ticks and quirks and stuff that are nothing major, but just like little things, like little attitude pieces. Like, they have character.
Like,
I mean,
how strong of a character opening when you open the door and Ellis is doing cocaine on Holly's desk.
I mean, well, and let's talk about Holly too, because I think in a lesser movie, this character would have felt so superfluous. She would have felt just like the princess at the castle that you needed to rescue. And, you know, she's kind of at a disadvantage because she does have to spend the movie being kind of the hostage and being sort of the threat that's being dangled over John's head. But they find a lot of ways to like assert her character, let it be known that she is a leader, that she's in this job for a reason, and that she is strong and independent. Like,
To the
they
point
find a
of-
lot of ways to make that work in the
Yeah,
few scenes
they
that she
do.
gets.
Yeah.
It's not going to pass the Bechdel test. I think she talks to one pregnant lady, but they talk about her little boy that she's birthing. So, you know.
What's the name of the cocaine guy again?
Ellis.
Ellis, yeah.
Played by Hart Bachner. Great name.
Like, Ellis tries to be the person in charge, buddy, you know, I'm going to work this out. But Holly ends up being more of the leader for the hostages in terms of advocating for treatment, stuff like that. Like, hey, we've got a pregnant lady. She's going to need to use the restroom. We need to make sure we're taking care of her.
Yeah.
If we start dropping these things, people are going to get real pissy, and it's going to be a lot harder for you to get your way. And, like, she navigates it for them.
John McTiernan had
which really helps.
John McTiernan had a funny story about the Ellis character where like he wasn't happy about that performance. He thought that character was too over the top. And then he showed it to the Fox executives, and that was their favorite character because that's the one they recognized. They recognized him as a real guy. they're like,
We know that guy.
basically, yeah. He's just like, you know, he's this sleazy, misogynistic cokehead who thinks he can like, you know, talk his way out of the situation. And so it's got all these like very 80s hallmarks like that while still feeling
And
pretty timeless.
what they have, I like to call crisis boobs.
Yeah.
Always like, oh, a woman's top is torn off. Screaming with boobs.
It's so brief that like I remember watching it with my parents for the first time. I was pretty young, and they're just like, wait, usually if like nudity happened on screen, my mom's move was to get up and turn the TV off for a few seconds and wait for it to go away. And in this one, it happened so fast. She's just like, wait, is it coming back? What do we do?
I had seen this movie a few times on TV, and then I watched this movie with, I believe, one of my roommates or on my own, and we missed that entirely.
Yeah.
And then the next year, I was home, and my mom was like, "What is there a movie anybody wants to watch?" And I'm like, "Oh, Die Hard."
Yeah.
It's a great Christmas movie. And they're like, "Sure, why not?" And that scene came on. My mom just looks at me and goes, "Justin Allen." I'm like, "I didn't know that scene was there. How did I not know?"
Ash,
I was like, "It doesn't happen again?" I think.
it was a crisis. It was a crisis.
Walking past the pinup, and where the first time he walks past it and he checks her out, and the second time he walks past it and he touches her for good luck.
I mean, you gotta love
I'm
this.
I'm not mad at the show. I'm just saying. I just thought it was really funny.
I love that as a little character detail. I mean, I feel like we get to know John so much through those little bits that he's doing. You know, like he's grossed out. by
Something they do in
Twinkies.
both Die Hard 1 and Die Hard 2 that I think is really interesting is that they have women I fuck him, and he's like, he just demurs because I'm married.
Yeah.
Because they're establishing things that I'm sexually desirable, but I'm married.
They do make a point of that. Like very first scene when he's on the plane,
Yeah.
the stewardess takes a long moment to check him out. And I'm like, all right. I mean, I get it. You know, he's got the kind of swagger. You know, like he's not.
He's really cute. Oh my god!
Yeah.
And when he's like crawling around in that tank top, especially at the beginning before it's all dirty, his
yeah.
arms look amazing.
Oh, look, he's in great shape.
He fits the part.
It's you know, I referred earlier that he has like a bit of a pooch or whatever, but like not really. It's just kind of in comparison to Schwarzenegger and Stallone.
Or
He's
a
not,
Rambo
like,
too.
ripped,
But he's
right. Like he's not like he's not doesn't look like a fucking King's Hawaiian
cheese
rolls
grater
on his stomach or something. You
He
know,
looks
like
he looks like he's a cop who actually does stuff.
Yeah. Like he's you know, and he does have to spend the last like third of the movie shirtless, but this isn't the same way that Schwarzenegger would do it to just like show his gains. You know, this is him showing his vulnerability. We need to be able to see that he is bloody and cut up, and we also need to know, like, when he goes through the window, jumping off the building, we need to be aware that his bare skin, his chest and his back are getting sliced up by glass.
Oh my gosh, whoever was the genius that wrote this screenplay and had him be barefoot.
Yeah.
Because I have not seen an action movie before or since that has something that is so fucking amazingly like cringe. Like you feel the pain when he's stepping on that glass, and it's utterly unbelievable.
It starts out as something that you just assume is like a throwaway thing because he has a little bit of discomfort on the plane, and the guy's like, I know it sounds really dumb, but if you got one of those like thick carpets and then just like squeeze your toes on them or whatever, it really helps with like clearing it out, all that stuff, making you feel better, getting rid of the jet lag. And he's doing that when the shit goes down and doesn't grab his shoes. And then you're like, oh, he doesn't have his shoes. And then it's notable the rest of the movie.
I mean, he has multiple times where he's trying to take shoes off of like dead terrorists and they never fit his feet. But it's such a brilliant moment because, again, this is an era of action heroes where like bullets are bouncing off them or like they'll get a little graze or something and they'll be fine. Like they shrug off all their injuries. John McClane cannot shrug any of these off. He needs to try and walk around and fight for his life against 30 heavily armed men while he's bleeding out of his feet.
There's like a solid 5-minute scene where he's just in the bathroom talking on the radio, pulling glass out of his feet and trying to clean himself up a little bit.
And again, we get moments of vulnerability in there too, because he's talking to Al and like he's genuinely scared. He's like, I've got a bad feeling. I don't think this is gonna go my way. Like,
and he's also like genuinely interested in Al too. He's not just like, you know, an action movie conversation. It's like, no, they're connecting.
Yeah.
They
have such great chemistry through a radio. Through a radio, their chemistry is off the charts.
And through a radio when they're not even calling John McClane by his name.
No.
Not until the final, 20 minutes?
Yeah.
Do they start using his name? Because he's intentionally keeping it off the radio.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, weirdly, they kind of do that in Die Hard 2 as well, because Al is in that movie, but he only talks to him over the phone, like because he's in L.A. or something, and John's in D.C.
Yep.
So yeah, it's kind of a weird mechanic, but you know, when those two like meet face to face at the end of the movie and get the big hug and the cuddle, like, come on, that's adorable. He's so relieved to be alive and to see this guy.
And so, for anybody who somehow doesn't know what Die Hard is about, it's a heist movie. That's not about the heisters. It's about the one dude who's stuck there, who just happens to also have just enough ability to try to do something.
And I think this is a genius move by the screenwriters and by the director, setting this up as a heist, like it's a heist movie, because we understand the stakes, we understand the geography, we understand what they're getting and what they want, and and then there's this fly, as they said, fly in the ointment to this heist, because like this easily could have been told from Hans Gruber's perspective of being a debonair Ocean's 11 style villain.
Yeah.
But instead it's told from John's perspective, and it's but it's simultaneous perspectives that just makes it such a strong movie.
Absolutely. You know, and you can argue that the Christmas of it all, like since we're talking about Christmas this month, you can argue that the Christmas of it all is just sort of a mechanic to get all these people, an excuse to have them all in the room at the same time. But there is something really intriguing about Christmas time in Southern California. I think it's something that Shane Black hit on too. All of Shane Black's movies, anything he wrote or directed, is a Christmas movie. So Lethal Weapon, Long Kiss Goodnight, Iron Man 3, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, all of these movies are Christmas movies. They're just set in LA.
No, we won't get to talk about Kiss Kiss Bang Bang on this podcast, but oh my God, if you guys have not seen Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, please go watch it. It is a fucking delight.
I will also go to bat hard for the Long Kiss Goodnight. Have you seen that?
Yeah, it's also really good.
The Long Kiss Goodnight
I haven't seen that in a
rules.
while, but I see Kiss Kiss Bang Bang on a pretty regular basis because I love it so much.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, there really is a nice contrast there of the palm trees and the twinkly lights.
I would say before Mel Gibson became a pariah and he was just such a awful.
It's a bummer.
I loved Lethal Weapon.
Absolutely.
So much.
Yep, movie's still pretty damn perfect.
It's so good, and it's such a good movie. And Lethal Weapon 2 and Lethal Weapon 3, it's just it feels like such a great trilogy.
Absolutely. Yeah, they didn't need to glaze it with 4. We'll actually talk about Lethal Weapon a bit. Yeah, we have games. Yeah, we will talk about Lethal Weapon. Technically, I think the game is based on Lethal Weapon 3, but it's just called Lethal Weapon. It's one of those weird situations.
So what you're saying is I'll actually watch them then.
You'll finally get to watch it. There's boobs in that one too, though. So
there's a lot more boobs.
Don't watch it with your mom and Mel Gibson's butt, which is that the one where he gets the moonlight shot, or is that
so? What you're saying is Mel Gibson?
Yeah, there's just a gratuitous shot of him walking in the moonlight, just so you could see his buns.
It's not gratuitous; it's crucial.
This movie, I mentioned it earlier. It just has so much good dialogue.
Yeah.
I cracked up so fucking hard the first time. I hadn't seen Die Hard in years when I watched it with my roommate that one time. And when he's trying to get help on the radio and the lady's like, "Sir, this is a restricted thing." It's like, "No shit, what do you think I'm doing? Ordering a fucking pizza?" I was like, "Oh,
it's
this
so
is
good.
so good."
It's so good. I mean, and it's great that he's bringing that hard-bitten New York energy to an LA scene where he feels like he's an alien in so many ways.
So much frustration comes through in so many different ways.
I
over
love
the course of the
Hans
movie.
Gruber. He says something to Theo along the lines, "But Theo, have some faith. It's Christmas. It is the time of miracles."
Absolutely. And you get the swell of Hallelujah playing when they finally do open the bank vaults. Lots of good I love Hans making up a list of demands, acting like he's a political terrorist to conceal the fact that he's just trying to steal a shitload of money. I mean, just so many little great details like that. It's like a 2.5 hour movie that just clips by like nothing. It's so incredibly fast paced, so much fun, and it just kind of fires on all cylinders.
And I think it's so memorable. How many of so many times when we're doing this podcast, we call people by their actor name.
Yeah.
Here we're being John, Hans, Carl, Argyle, Al.
Yeah.
Theo. It's just another, I think, genius move in the writing here is the use of the radio.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like in video games, you get it all the time, and you get it in some movies too, where the main villain is monologuing at on a PA system while you're on your way to fight them or whatever. But this is oh no, this is a two-way system, buddy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk shit right back.
Absolutely. I mean, that's where we get our iconic Yippee-kay-ay motherfuckers. That's where all that's coming from.
The banter throughout is so good.
The first time I ever watched this, it was definitely on TV, so I can't remember what they said. It was Yippee-kay-ay,
mother, father, or
something along those lines. It was.
Yeah, I love TV edits. There's some, because some syndicators would like dub over the dialogue. Sometimes they would just bleep it, but sometimes they would have somebody like a
Sometimes they
sound-alike
would
try
bleep
to
it,
replace the
sometimes
dialogue.
they would cut they would silence, and then sometimes, yeah, and Die Hard was definitely one of those ones where every time I saw it on TV,
Yeah.
they were very clearly dubbing over, and it was, I think Die Hard was the one where it felt like the longer, it was either Die Hard 1 or 2, but the longer the movie went on, the less they tried to match the dialogue.
Yeah.
Like at the beginning, you're like, that almost sounded like Bruce Willis. And by the end, you're like, what is this?
I mean,
this was not even delivered well.
that actually,
Let alone trying to sound like Bruce Willis.
that might actually give us a good segue to talk about some of these games, because the Bruce Willis sound-alikes that they get in this game are trying. Like, I guess it's hard to do a Bruce Willis impression, like without just doing like a Jersey guy.
I think the guy in the PlayStation game did a decent job.
He was trying.
Like with the inflection and
Get
the way
the hell
that,
out of here.
some words get kind of carried longer the way that John McClane says them.
Yeah.
I think it worked out pretty well.
Well, Lear, let's segue into this, because I'm sure we will get back to the movie as well, just because that's what we do. That's how we do it. But I want to talk about the games a little bit, because I was a little stymied about how to unfold these, and then I remembered, oh, this is our show, we can do it however we want. But I think I get so caught up on the format. I'm like, all right, does this match the format entirely? And the Die Hard video game series is pretty strange in a lot of ways. So we have one game that's actually expressly based on one of the movies. And then, that's like actually based on one movie. Then we get a PS1 game that is based on all three movies, kind of loosely. And then the rest are either reskins of Japanese games or their original stories set in the universe that don't really have anything to do with Die Hard. So it kind of made it difficult to talk about. Like, we can't run the whole trilogy here, and there are only 3. We can't run the whole trilogy here because there's only games based on the one movie, unless we wanted to talk about Die Hard trilogy 3 times. So that'd be a weird way to go. And as we're about to see, like, those games don't really have a lot of meat on them, so it's not really something we can dig into. But let's start by talking about the NES game that came out in 1990. It's from McClane. And this is a really interesting game in a lot of ways, I think. So first of all, it's a top-down perspective, which is, for whatever reason...
Wasn't it Activision?
Oh, it is Activision.
Yeah.
Thank you. Excuse me. I get those confused all the time, especially in this era. They had kind of similar logo. Oh, no, it was Acclaim.
Oh, yeah.
I think I'm,
Sorry,
I think
my
I'm right on
bad.
that. Yeah, no, that's all good.
Because it had the colored logo.
Oh, okay, that was it, yeah.
Like rainbowy thing.
Yeah, Acclaim is long dead, but Activision lives on, or is it Microsoft now? I don't know.
Technically, it's Activision Blizzard because they are currently a merger between Activision and Blizzard.
Right.
However, they're being wholesale bought by Microsoft, so I believe they will operate as Activision Blizzard still.
Okay.
For the foreseeable future, at least.
Well, this game has a pretty interesting structure in a lot of ways. So, like, first of all, you have the top-down, like, kind of bird's-eye view perspective, which is not something you see in games of this era very often. It reminds me a lot of a game I really love called Hotline Miami. It came out a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very violent,
Years ago.
like a decade ago. Yeah.
It was like 2015.
This is shit like I still think
Time
of, like,
is a flat circle.
yeah. The other day I had a realization. I'm like, oh wow, I still think of Katy Perry as like a current new artist. And I'm like, oh yeah, her career is like 15 years old.
You were right. Hotline Miami came out in 2012.
Yeah, it's been about a decade.
Hotline
yeah.
Miami 2 was like 20.
A little after that, yeah. But
So
those games are pretty fantastic, and I think they owe a little bit to these games in spirit. But this one really tries to adapt the movie, or like the central tenets of the movie, into an NES game in a way that I think is interesting. First of all, you have a health meter and you have a foot meter. It's kind of an interesting little tech, but like enemies can shoot out glass in this, and if you walk on it, you will lower your foot meter, and if you lower your foot meter too much, you can't really get around very well.
that was inspired by Quentin Tarantino.
It was, yes.
He always has a foot meter in his films. A little known fact, right?
Oh, yeah.
Nobody knows this.
Yeah,
but
he just keeps it to
if
himself.
the foot meter doesn't get high enough, the movie doesn't get released.
It was Tarantine by Quentin Inspirino. Yes. Anyway, dumb thing to say. I don't know why I always want to spooner. I always want to spoonerize
I'm just gonna
his
sigh.
name.
I'm just gonna sigh.
I love that.
But so there are a finite number of enemies in this game, which is also unique for an NES, where like they usually just kind of regenerate over and over. This time, like in this game, if you shoot an enemy, they will stay on the floor like the rest of the game. Like they will stay where you shot them. There are only 40 terrorists in the entire game, and your goal is to defeat all of them before Theo and Hans can open up the safe. You know, so I think you have like 4-minute increments before each safe pops off, which gives you roughly a little short of a half an hour to beat the game. You can extend that time a little bit by finding certain computers throughout the game, but I think the difficulty thing that we run into with this game is, it's the difficulty.
Yeah.
It turns out it's a pretty hard game. It's kind of a bullet hell. You know, if you're not familiar with that genre, it's the idea that basically just bullets are filling every frame of the screen, and the goal is more to evade like really nimbly than it is to actually shoot back.
Yeah.
So
except you're doing it on a D-pad.
You do it on a D-pad.
Yeah.
Which is a little clunky, as we'll see with the next game too. A little difficult to just work with the D-pad.
I think that as far as concepts go, it's one of the games that has most closely followed the actual like concept of the movie.
Weirdly, it really is.
Because that's basically what John McClane was doing. Although there's only like 12, 15 people that he was going against.
Yeah, something like that.
But it's a very similar concept. You start off with just a pistol with some ammo, and you can kill people and take their machine guns, but as you have finite ammo, so you can eventually get reduced down to
just
I gotta
punching.
go throw hands.
Yeah.
These guys have guns, and I'm over here running out the door.
Yeah.
Trying to punch them up.
I mean, it is weird how faithful it is to the idea of the movie. Like, Hans will interrupt the game sometimes, like a little cutscene of Alan Rickman will show up, and he'll tell a certain terrorist to go up to this floor to find him. After the first safe blows, he realizes that you're listening in, and he says, no more radio communications. And then you don't hear from him anymore. So you can't get a warning when the terrorists are coming for you.
The interesting thing to that is that you have to kill a terrorist first, take his radio, and then whenever you get hit, you drop an item.
Yeah.
You can go pick it up. But that only happens if you have the radio.
Yeah.
So it's such a honestly, in terms of it being an SNES game,
Original NES,
Original NES,
not even Super.
well thought through.
Yeah, I do think it's a well thought through game.
You can traverse the same general number of floors that they do in the movie.
Which is say you have access to like 6 or 7 floors. Like we never go to the lobby because he doesn't really spend any time in the lobby.
I think you have access to like floor 30 to the roof, which is like 37, 35, something like that. And each one has a bunch of different stuff happening. It seems like once you get to a certain point, like the game won't let you go down to 30.
No.
Because that's where all the bad guys are.
Right.
But according to the way it was explained when you try to do it, it's like you can't go down there until the hostages aren't there.
Yeah.
So it sounds like as time progresses, things progress, and that allows you to start to go down to the 30th floor.
Yeah.
And that may cause changes to the other floors. I don't know this.
No,
but either way, it seemed like it's a well set up game.
It's clever.
Much better than the PS1 game.
Interesting take. The one other thing I will throw about Die Hard NES is just that it's one of those one life games. Like you can't get any more continues. So that's what makes it more challenging. Like you can get pretty good at evading those bullets and like taking out terrorists. You can make some good progress, but it's pretty unforgiving. You get that one life and you're done.
And if you go to a certain floor and walk into the bathroom, there's some med packs there for you to fix your feet, just like in the movie.
Just your feet.
Except in the movie, it was paper towels.
And then soda, in classic 80s video game style, you cure your health by drinking soda.
Oh, is that what it is?
Oh, yeah, that's what those are. Yeah.
Okay.
Every time, that's going to cure your health. Which, again, makes a little sense for the movie because the only time we ever see him eating is like snacking on Cokes and Old Stale Twinkies. Like, that's what he has at his disposal. All right.
Because he can't go to the party.
Yeah.
This is really just...
And he was trying to welcome people. He was welcoming all his pals to the party, you know?
This movie is about cock-blocking John McClane from going to the Christmas party.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's what this movie's about.
It is. I don't think he wants to go there, though. Like all these Californians. But yeah, okay, let's talk about this other game that I think J-Band's going to have some slightly hotter takes on, I think. This is Die Hard Trilogy. It was released in September of 1996. It's from Probe Interactive, and it's released by Fox Interactive. This came out on the PS1, the Saturn, and the Windows. We played this on PS1.
Yeah.
This is a really interesting idea for a game, and it's actually a similar one for the Alien series that we didn't really touch on at all, but it's from the same makers. It's just called Aliens Trilogy, so it's kind of the same idea. But basically, this is like 3 little games in one, and each game is based on the 3 movies in the series up to that point, or I mean the only 3 movies that exist in the Die Hard series, of course. And the interesting thing is that each one is a totally different genre. So like the first game, Die Hard, is a third-person kind of action-y shoot-'em-up, sort of like a Gauntlet or something like that, where you're running around mowing down enemies. The second game, Die Hard 2, is a first-person shooter that's like an on-rails, that takes place in
arcade-style on-rails shooter.
And then the third game, Die Hard with a Vengeance, is a kind of like a Crazy Taxi-style game where you are literally running around in a crazy taxi trying to, I guess, run over
bombs,
run over people
The
with
only
bombs.
things that we encountered during our time playing was objectives to run over bombs in a taxi.
Yeah.
However, there were like, when you start into that version of the game, it shows like trailer-esque video, and it looks like you can get like into a police car later. Like
You
things
can,
change up
yeah.
as you play.
I accidentally did that, and then I got stuck in the lot because I couldn't figure out how to reverse.
And then you
Look,
exploded.
I
then
also
we
didn't figure out how to
exploded.
reverse, and New York blew up a lot.
Yeah. I mean, so even though we're only talking about the first movie, really, we did play a little bit of each of these.
Okay, so,
because,
If
yeah,
we could
let's let
put-
J-Man do it, yeah.
let's
Can
push
I
a
do
little.
a little thing
Okay, you
super
can do.
quick
You go first.
So, fun fact: I had actually played this game before as a kid.
Okay.
I had gone to a friend's house, and I'd mentioned this to the others, and we went to a video store in town. We were just checking out the games, and his parents were the parents that would kind of let us rent whatever we wanted.
Sure.
And so we rented this game. No fucking idea what Die Hard was.
Okay.
We had no idea whatsoever, and that's why when you pulled up the game, I was just thinking, and I'm like, no shit.
Yeah.
This just, I remember now playing a game like this that was called something that seemed violent, like Die or whatever, and I'm like, oh my god, I played the Die Hard game as a kid before I even knew what Die Hard was.
Yeah. Oh, you were playing the game version of Der Fledermaus, the opera from Germany. Yes, I think that was what that was.
Now you say your bit. Sorry.
I wanted to pause it, and I just wanted to have like a few words, even though it's been a long time since I watched it, about how much I love Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Fuck, yes. I think I watched it like 2 months ago, and it holds up.
Oh, it's
Such
so
a
good.
Sequel that changes the, not quite genre, but like drastically changes the way the movie is, and works so well.
Yeah, and starting off with an antagonistic buddy, as opposed to a friendly buddy, and it was just, I don't know, it's such a good movie, and like they had the use of classical music in it, was so good, and I'm just like, I really feel like it's probably the movie that I just feel like it's like one of the best third movies of trilogies.
It's so slept on. Like, I think today we don't talk about it enough because,
Especially
like,
since so many third movies just suck.
yeah. I mean, I think that movie is almost like a course correction from Die Hard 2 a little bit. Like, Die Hard 2 is a fun movie. I enjoy Die Hard 2, but that one is much more of a traditional shoot-'em-up action movie, right? Like, it hits some of the same beats, but it's got a lot more cheesy energy to it. And it's much more violent and much more cruel. No, I'm fine. Okay. And Die Hard 3 kind of resets things a little bit. We're back to very, very weary, hungover, like bad marriage John McClane. We're back to a member of the Gruber family, so like a German terrorist. Yeah. But then we introduce this element of A, the buddy, played by Samuel L. Jackson, and B, the series of puzzles that he's sending them around the city to solve. Come on, how fun is that?
The Jug one has been such a common puzzle across games in media for so long.
Yeah. Oh, you guys are witnessing the Gunter shuffle when my dog doesn't really want to go outside and gets excited.
It's so adorable.
He does a little shuffle. Yes, but I'm 100% with you. I think Die Hard with a
So,
Vengeance is
and it was
slept
so
on.
funny about, like, I was hoping that there would be some puzzles in the Die Hard trilogy game on the third game. Because, like, you can pick which movie to go into. And it was just a horrible driving game.
Which I will point out that there wasn't a lot of good driving games back then. I think Driver was one of the big ones that came out, and then people were like, "Oh, this is a thing that we can do."
Yeah.
At that point, Grand Theft Auto existed, but it was top-down driving around in cars and stuff. It wasn't 3D. It didn't hit 3D until we had an analog stick.
Yeah.
And so driving games were so weird without a more precise way to drive, because they're not touch sensitive, they're not force feedback. No matter how you press the button, it's doing the exact thing. So you have to get used to like little tippy taps in order to drive in a relatively straight line.
This is a really interesting time for video games in general. This came out in 1996, so this is kind of first generation of PlayStation 1 games that came out. The dual analog sticks did not exist, so you just didn't have them. Your D-pad was the only thing you can control anything with.
Not only did the dual, no
analog sticks. And so and you're also still striking a balance tonally, right? Because arcades are still very much a force in the world. And a lot of the games that are being released on home consoles are adaptations of arcade games. And so they need to have that kind of freewheeling arcadey spirit, which I would argue this game has. Like all three versions of this.
Definitely feels like a bad arcade game.
The second one is the on-rail arcade shooter is an arcade game.
It absolutely is, yeah. And
that's exactly how it would be.
I think I'm feeling a lot more charitable towards this game than J-Ban is, because there is something charmingly shaggy about it. I agree it's a little hard to control just with the D-pad.
It's hard to control, and the graphics are so bad. You keep almost killing hostages or innocent people. I don't care. You can make a hostage look different than a terrorist.
You probably could. Yeah. I mean the body language of them hunching over, looking scared, doesn't super read, especially from a distance. So,
I mean, we didn't have as big of a problem as J-Ban did with shooting all the hostages.
The game also doesn't seem to super punish you for doing that either. Especially in the driving section, we were all mowing down everybody, smashing into cars.
Yeah, I hit a lot of cars. J-Ban exterminated a neighborhood. Everybody who was outside got ran over.
Hey, I mean, it's probably good because those bombs, when they go off, are apocalyptic.
Yes.
When those bombs go off, if you miss any of them, it is a Terminator 2 fire cloud, wiping people out.
And we had that moment where it cuts away to a very late 90s rendering of New York getting blown up, and the Twin Towers were there, and we're like,
yeah, that has aged poorly. Yeah,
Right.
there is a specific graphic animation in this game of the Twin Towers getting blown up.
but that was New York though.
Yeah.
Right? That was a symbol of New York.
Yeah.
Which is why that's happened.
Oh,
the way
of
it
course.
did.
Yeah, no. Obviously,
so
no. They
interesting.
couldn't have known. It's not. It's just one of those
They
weird
couldn't have known
coincidences.
that Kermit was gonna cause all these things.
What?
You don't know this? There's a Kermit. There's a Christmas movie with the Muppets where they do the different ghosts going back in time.
Muppet Christmas Carol.
Yeah, and at one point, things work out where it's like, wait, the Twin Towers are there in this version where Kermit didn't exist.
Oh well, there were lots of movies like that.
Conspiracy theory.
Nah,
Okay,
It is.
we're no
100%.
conspiracy theories
100%.
on this podcast.
I'm throwing
It
it
is
away. I'm
definitely
throwing it away.
a very jokey conspiracy
No,
theory.
I'm throwing it away.
But it's one of those really dumb, vague conspiracy theories that I'm like, who figures these things out?
Yeah.
People with too much time on their hands.
People with too much time. I mean, so I would argue that this game does hit some of the beats and get some of the vibe right, but it's kind of running a little counter to the spirit of the movie,
Yes,
because the movie is
100%.
not like a shoot 'em up like action movie. It is more.
In the initial opening, I believe I killed maybe 25, 30 people.
Yeah.
And J-Man, how many of them were actual terrorists?
I only killed one hostage.
Okay. That time.
But I did execute them.
I will say I think the Die Hard section of this game was the one I enjoyed the most, and it's not the one I was expecting to enjoy the most, because it feels like the one that would have aged the most poorly of the three.
I like the Die Hard 2 section.
Okay,
Most, yeah.
I had trouble with the aiming. I think it might be better if I was using the light gun. I don't
Yeah.
have a light gun for this, so like I wouldn't be able to do it. But this game does support that.
Did they have a light gun for the PlayStation?
Oh yeah, they had several. Like Namco had a version. Like lots of different people had them.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
I never knew that.
There's a ton of great light gun games on the PS1. You get Point Blank. You know what's a good? Oh, this is PS2, but weirdly a really good one, Starsky and Hutch. Because one player gets to drive and the other one gets to shoot.
Oh, I think I have actually heard of this.
It's
before.
fun. Yeah, it's actually fun. My buddy Woody is a big light gun enthusiast.
Like,
so
I
Was
knew
it based
those.
on the movie? Will we be
based on the show.
On the
It
show.
was based on the old 70s TV show. So unfortunately, it won't come up for us. But
Yeah.
that game's a lot of fun.
It, like I knew that existed at that time, obviously from the like Duck Hunt and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But like that was never a connection that I ever saw or heard of
Yeah.
for the PlayStation.
But I mean, I feel like the Die Hard section of here was the one I was having the most fun with, especially once you
Yeah.
figure out where the power ups are and like, it's an
very
endemic
loose.
of games of this era that they
Yeah.
don't really tell you what you're doing. Like they are anticipating that you have the manual somewhere. Rivet, stop being a Tarantino. Sorry, my dog's licking feet. Get out of here.
Because
Sorry,
she can't lick noses.
It's true. Yeah, she's a booger monster. But the With a Vengeance one was definitely the weakest one for me, just because controlling that cab with the D-pad at the speeds that you're going with the narrow turns that you need to make is pretty tough. Like, this is a good 3 years before Crazy Taxi even came out.
And
So
to
like,
be fair, I will say that in games like that, whether it's Grand Theft Auto, whatever, you do quickly learn, like the way to actually get good at driving in those games is to realize, this isn't a racetrack.
Yeah.
Moderation is needed. I can't go full speed, but the game wants you to go full speed.
it is a race. Yeah, no, it is
is.
absolutely a race against time. Like, yeah, that's definitely an issue.
But if you slow it down just a bit, you can control a bit better. But it's still, I mean, I was throwing cars across lanes of traffic.
Yeah.
It was not great.
how you typically drive?
Oh yeah,
yes, oh, absolutely.
Like I owned a car for 5 days before I totaled it. So
I mean,
good times.
I can absolutely understand feeling like frustrated with this game because the controls are rough, the graphics are a little rough, but I don't know. I think there's something pretty charming and fun here.
I mean, at the time we spent $3, and I don't think we were disappointed to play the game. So it at least kind of worked.
Yeah.
I don't think it hit. I don't think it was Game of the Year.
No, not
sure.
necessarily, but
But the next game, I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
yes, that's right. We took a little diversion because again, we can. Why not? It's our show. I found a ROM of the Japanese version of this game that was released for the PC Engine. It was called the TurboGrafx 16 over here, which is a pretty obscure console even for a lot of like gaming nerds. But this one it was never released over here. There were always some weird licensing issues with Die Hard over in Japan. One of the significant games we didn't talk about is called Die Hard Arcade. It came out on the Saturn. It's a 3D action game. And when they released it in Japan, they had to remove all the Die Hard licensing from it. So they changed the name to Dynamite Cop. And then they released Dynamite Cop over here as its own game. So it became this whole kind of cyclical thing. So this was another one of those situations. Like, they made it a pretty loose adaptation of what Die Hard is. So, like, J-Ban, what's the first level of this game?
You're going through a jungle, man.
It looks like it is straight ripped from, like, Rambo.
100% straight rip from Rambo.
And it plays like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the old arcade game, Ikari Warriors. It kind of plays like that, where you're, like, scrolling from bottom to top. you're shooting everybody, and that you're basically just an unstoppable killing machine. And your whole goal is just to like wipe out enough people to get to the end of the level. You know, so it's got it was fun, actually.
It was fun. It was definitely like one of those arcade games that has like the really like lovely difficulty of like you almost die, but you get health right at the right moment. And so it was like, oh, like I got through like, I think 4 levels or something like that. It was just so much fun. It was just a delight. And like, but it was very silly because like the second level, you were like going through standing water again, like Rambo. But it's funny, you do wear the Die Hard tank top throughout.
Yeah, you do. And the funny thing is, like, the third level is Nakatomi Plaza. Like, you get to the skyscraper, but it's just funny that they translated like a limo ride from the airport has now become Vietnam, like the Vietnam War.
At one point, J-Man goes, "I found a flamethrower," and I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Argyle had that in his limo. He was
that
in
was
the back.
in the trunk.
Yeah, he had everything. You know, CDs,
Giant teddy bears.
Yeah, he had a giant teddy. The teddy bear had the flamethrower inside of it. Yeah. I think we ran into a wall with this game just because we don't speak Japanese. Once you get to the tower, you need to enter doors in a certain order, and you need to kind of get out in a certain way. But it's giving us instruction in kanji, which we couldn't read. So unless you want to just sort of blindly wander through the maze of the building, then you wouldn't really be able to get through it. And I think I reached a point where I'm just like, I don't want to keep like wandering through the same level until I find my way. Or maybe it's just repeating and I can't tell. All the levels do kind of look the same, right? Yeah. But, you know, there was some fun stuff to be had in there.
Yeah. At one point, I had just like laid down, and J-Ban was like, "Do we want to record now? Do we want to keep going playing?" And I'm like, "You can keep playing." Yeah. J-Ban was content to keep playing.
Yeah, I was. I was really enjoying it.
Relaxed on the couch.
No,
I could have played that game for hours. It was just so much fun.
Yeah, no, it's kind of a chill little game. It's really enjoyable. Yeah, you know, there were a few other Die Hard games released after this. They made a sequel actually to Die Hard Trilogy called Viva Las Vegas, and it's similarly got 3 little stories in it, and it's the same gameplay style, but obviously it's building off of movies that don't exist. He never goes to Vegas.
Wait, you're not kidding?
Yeah. No, that's real. That's real. No, I'm not kidding. No, that's a real
I thought
game.
this was a joke.
No, that's real. That's definitely real. And then there were a few others, kind of like I think one's called like Battle for Nakatomi Plaza or something like that. Like they're all very either loosely adapted or just like other games that have the Die Hard skin thrown onto it, you know. So there are a few of them out there, but this never really super caught fire as a video game franchise, even though I think there's some solid ones in here. Like there's a few good ones to pick through. Do we have any final thoughts to say about beloved Christmas holiday classic Die Hard, the movie?
Watch it every Christmas.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
you know what?
I do have, I don't know how many local Austin listeners we have, but Penfold Theater does a radio broadcast, live reading, a 1940s style radio broadcast. And it is the most delightful thing that I watched last year. I'm going to watch it again this year. It's just such a delight. They have like 5 or 6 actors playing all the parts, and they have live. They had a live Foley artist instead of who made all of the sound effects with their mouth last year.
Oh, that's amazing.
I don't know whether or not he's going to be there this year, but it was so good.
I'm excited. I'm going to this too this year. This sounds really up my alley. Actually,
Yeah,
it's like a Prairie Home Companion style version of Die Hard, which is amazing to me. I love that.
I'm sad that it's happening the day after I fly out to go to middle of nowhere for Christmas.
Fair enough.
Yeah, no.
Hopefully they'll have it again next year. So
yeah, it seems like it's a yearly thing. Well, thank you everyone for listening. We have 3 more Christmas movies coming out for you this month. It's a 5 Friday month. So next week we are going to be talking about the movie Elf. That's right.
Oh no.
Elf is a movie, and
wait, we haven't rated.
Oh yeah, we should talk. Yeah, well, let's rate real quick. Yeah, we'll rate real quick. So Die Hard. Where are we landing on these?
Spectacular movie, practically perfect classic. And then for the games, the NES game, good game. PS game, bad game. And then the weird Japanese game that I played, Really, really fun. Great game.
Okay. All right.
I'm definitely gonna fall on great movie again. Love it. During this podcast, I literally texted my roommates and I'm like, "Hey, we're gonna watch Die Hard."
Yeah.
As a group. Then the games, I think mine pretty well. The first game, the NES game, great. The PlayStation game, I have some nostalgia with it. I think it was okay,
Yeah.
and at the time it was okay. It aged so bad in terms of gameplay. Except for the light gun sequence, which is still the same as it was.
Yeah.
Not many games do that these days. And then the Japanese one seemed chill.
Yeah. Controversial take, but I think this is a pretty good movie. I think it's a pretty well-made movie, and I like it. And I'm also gonna say I think all three of these games are good. I had fun with all of these. Obviously rough edges on all of them, but I think they're all pretty fun in their own unique takes on this material.
I think it's very interesting that we're gonna go from my favorite Christmas movie to my least favorite Christmas movie.
I'm interested to hash this out.
Well, I haven't seen it in a while.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I've never liked it.
Maybe
so.
it'll grow on you. If people at home are watching along with us, I don't know if you're going to be able to find this movie unless you have any streaming service, any cable channel, any outdoor surface, any movie theater, or tattoos in the back of your eyelids. Right now might be the most accessible movie of all time, right? Like.
I do think it's all over the place.
It's entered into that realm. Like, I don't know if TNT is doing 24-hour elf marathons like they do with Christmas Story, but it's probably on its way, right? I'm sure that'll happen.
I'm pretty sure that is where we typically would watch it, was coming on TNT.
Yeah.
But it's my sister's favorite. So
Okay.
we'll get into more details.
We will get into it.
As we
All
get
right.
there. There's a little sneak peek.
Yeah, a little more Christmas spirit coming your way, guys. So get ready with your spaghetti and your syrup, and we will see you next week for some elf.
Now I have a machine gun. Ho, ho, ho.